Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're unpacking a biography that, honestly, it reads more like a screenplay for a really dramatic film than a real-life story.
It really does. We are opening up the file on Maiko Yūki, who was born Maki Wakui back in 1977. We're talking about one of the top adult video idols of the mid-90s.
A huge star. She was named AV Girl of the Year in 1998.
Exactly. And her career went on for more than 15 years. But what makes her story so compelling isn't just the longevity, it's the intense, almost unbelievable motivation behind it all.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, to really trace that motivation. Because when you get into the source material on her life, you find a story just defined by these extreme contrasts.
Yeah, a really turbulent youth, a profound personal trauma, and then this career choice that was made specifically to confront a deep, paralyzing fear.
It's an incredible journey from this, unstable background in Niigata to, well, to global celebrity.
And that central conflict, it starts right at the beginning. Yuki was born into a construction family in Niigata Prefecture, but the environment was not what you'd call typical.
Not at all. The sources specify that both of her parents had been involved in organized crime.
Right, they were reported to be gang members. So this background, it really contributed to a violent and volatile upbringing.
Absolutely. Yuki herself was known as a rowdy student. She actually claims she never once lost a fight, didn't matter if it was against a boy or a girl.
That whole background of confrontation and conflict seems to have shaped her entire early life.
And that instability at home, it pushed her out. By the time she was in 8th grade, she was running away pretty frequently. The sources point to serious family difficulties.
Her formal education just stops. She was expelled from high school on the very first day.
On day one.
Day one, the reason. She got into a fight with a teacher. So she was already, on a path completely outside conventional society.
Okay, so that sets the stage for what the sources call the traumatic turning point. After being expelled, she goes back home and gets a job as a golf caddy. She's only 17.
Right. And the sources make a point of saying she was determined to keep her virginity until marriage. It sort of reflects this desire for some kind of control, maybe some normalcy, in a really chaotic life.
But that control was just shattered.
Completely. At 17, she was raped by her boyfriend's brother. And he wasn't just anybody. He was the leader of a local gang.
Wow.
And this harrowing experience had a profound psychological impact. She developed a severe male phobia, an intense, crippling fear of men.
And this is where her story takes that incredible, almost psychological twist. Instead of, retreating from the world, she does the absolute opposite.
She enrolls in an acting school. There she meets an AV manager and the decision she makes next. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even purely about ambition.
It was personal.
Deeply personal. She chose to perform in adult videos explicitly, and I mean explicitly, as a way of confronting and resolving that fear.
That is radical self-therapy. I mean, we're talking exposure therapy on an industrial scale.
That's a perfect way to put it. The whole idea was that by repeatedly placing herself in these situations where she had to interact professionally and physically with men, she would desensitize herself. She would neutralize the core trauma.
So it reframes her entire career. It's not just a job, it's a mechanism for healing.
Which is exactly why her biography is so unique. So she steps onto the set of her debut video, Shujokyu Sudogyu Graduation. This is April 1995.
And the trauma, it immediately comes rushing back.
Oh, absolutely. The first day of shooting was, by all accounts, an emotional disaster. The sources say that filming was delayed for 5 full hours.
5 hours.
5 hours. All because of her emotional state, which was directly triggered by the memory of the assault.
Now, here's a piece of industry insight that really pushes back on a lot of assumptions you might have about this kind of work.
Right, because instead of being treated callously, Yuki later publicly praised the AV staff for how they reacted.
She said they were incredibly understanding, really sympathetic during that crisis. And she even noted that she often got more impersonal treatment later when she was working with mainstream TV and magazine crews.
That's a key detail, isn't it? It suggests that within this industry, which is so often stereotyped as just transactional or exploitative, there's a level of, professional sensitivity that she didn't find elsewhere.
It paints a much more complex picture, for sure. And the surprises just keep coming, especially on the home front.
Her family, yeah. They initially opposed her career choice, which, you'd expect.
Of course.
But they actually reversed course. They became supportive. The sources even mentioned that they attended a fan signing event after her first video came out.
A supportive family in this context is another one of those details that just runs completely counter to the standard narrative you hear.
It really is. And during that first burst of her career from 95 to 96, she was incredibly busy. She was alternating monthly releases for big studios like HMP and Cosmos Plan.
And she got known for a specific image, right? The sok ma-rung beautiful girl.
That was her look, yeah.
Yeah.
This clean, fresh, very conventionally attractive image that really secured her initial success in Japan before she took her first brief retirement in May 1996.
That retirement is such a pivotal moment because while she's stepping back at home, the rest of East Asia is, well, just about to discover her.
Exactly. She retires. But during this break, a copy of an illegal video, this is key, it was an unauthorized transfer, a bootleg.
Right, a bootleg.
It makes its way into Hong Kong. And what followed wasn't just, typical popularity. It was a massive cultural phenomenon.
So big that there are actual academic papers written about it.
Academic papers. Think about that, to study the impact she was having on the local culture there.
So what did they find? I mean, why did Hong Kong latch onto her so intensely?
Well, the analysis in these papers is fascinating. They cite her work as a symbol that presented a new beauty image to young people in Hong Kong.
A new beauty image.
Yeah, she became this sort of figurehead for a certain kind of modern, uninhibited beauty that was maybe lacking or, suppressed in their own local media.
Yeah.
This immense popularity is what earned her the nickname the Asian Goddess.
And when she finally visited Hong Kong, the reaction was just explosive.
The numbers are staggering. She needed 6 bodyguards just to manage an autograph signing. An autograph signing that drew a crowd of over 8,000 people.
8,000! That's a mob.
It's a mob. The local media treated it like a huge event. News of her visit was in the daily papers. Her picture was plastered all over the streets. The sources even talk about rumors of, near chaos and potential bloodshed among fans just trying to get close to her.
That is a whole different level of fame.
It is. And that experience, that overwhelming overseas validation, it completely changed how she saw her own career.
She stopped seeing it as just therapy or just a job.
Right. The experience caused her to see her work as a life's calling. She realized the cultural impact she could have, even if it was kind of accidental. And this is what prompted her to fully commit. She moves to Tokyo at 21 to pursue the work full-time.
And her reach wasn't just limited to Hong Kong. Taiwan was huge for her, too.
Her fan base there was huge, and her influence was incredibly durable. Get this. In 2012, which is well past her peak, she was still ranked number 4 on a big Now News list of the top 10 Japanese actresses overall.
Not just AV idols, overall.
Overall, that shows a lasting cross-genre legacy. And this influence allowed her to bridge into other industries. She appeared in the Hong Kong movie Hong Kong Night Guide, which actually made her the first AV actress to successfully enter the overseas entertainment industry in a film role.
Before we move on, there's a really fascinating historical footnote here about her reach. Because her peak popularity, that 95 to 96 period, it actually predates a really critical political moment in the region.
Precisely. Her career takes off before the Kim Dae-jung administration in South Korea formally opened up the country to Japanese popular culture, which happened in 1998.
So because of that timing, that specific policy shift,
her awareness in Korea was relatively low. It's nothing compared to the massive Yuki Maiko syndrome that had already swept through Hong Kong and Taiwan.
So her popularity curve was literally dictated by national policy. She was a goddess in one place and a relative unknown right next door.
It's a perfect example of how these external forces can shape cultural flow, even with something as seemingly universal as adult entertainment.
So fueled by this massive international fame, she officially comes back to the industry in Japan in April 1998. The video was Venus Return. But the comeback, it introduced a really dramatic shift.
A huge shift, yeah, in her appearance and her style.
Yeah.
And this was strategic. It was driven by her attempt to cross over into mainstream acting, which, has its own physical demands.
Right, she lost a lot of weight.
A significant amount, which noticeably reduced her breast size, and she also tanned her skin.
Which is a huge pivot, because that pre-retirement image in Japan was all about being white, tall, cute, and glamorous.
Exactly. That was the image that made her famous at home. So this new look, slimmer, tanned, a bit tougher, it actually caused her domestic popularity to dip. Japanese fans were a bit confused.
They wanted the old Maiko Yūki back.
They wanted the Sokma-rung beautiful girl back, yeah. But she was aiming for mainstream acceptability. So she also shifted her performance style, moving away from those cheerful, playful works toward much heavier, darker content.
Like S&M productions for edgier studios.
Right, studios like Attackers and Cinemagic. This let her keep working while she was pursuing those other goals.
And those crossover goals, they did start to pay off. She managed to get into some pretty high-profile media.
She did. She had a role in the major animated sci-fi film The End of Evangelion in July 1997.
She also appeared in a V-Cinema film, Jiaku Hishokyutka, in 1998.
And V-Cinema, for anyone unfamiliar, is basically Japan's direct-to-video market, often pretty gritty. But her biggest mainstream success that year was starring in the TV drama Blue Fireworks.
Which was on NHK, Japan's national public broadcaster. That's a huge deal.
A huge deal. It was an award-winning drama about women working in the porn industry, so she was, perfectly cast for it.
Her career just becomes this series of international firsts and boundary-pushing moves.
We already talked about the Hong Kong film, but then she also became the star performer in the very first Japanese strip show to ever perform in the People's Republic of China. That was around 2003, 2004.
And much later, she comes back to film again, playing herself in the 2014 Hong Kong sex comedy Naked Ambition 2.
Which was basically a parody of the Japanese AV industry. And that film even got a release in Korea, which shows that her fame, even decades later, was still bankable across the region.
So it's hard to even nail down a final retirement date for her AV work. She officially retired in 2006, but then she had a second comeback in 2010.
She is just constantly redefining her professional boundaries. And that drive is still clear today. She still introduces herself professionally as an AV actress. She recognizes the root of her fame, but she hasn't given up on the ambition of becoming a movie star.
And she has a very, very specific goal for that final push.
She does. She wants to appear in a Hollywood movie, even if it's just a small role.
And to get there, she's not just waiting around, she's actively learning martial arts. Her thinking is she can fulfill that archetype that Hollywood often looks for.
The mysterious Asian who is good at martial arts. She's being strategic about it.
So if we step back and just look at the whole story, what we have is this deeply resilient person who took a devastating trauma.
Sexual assault, yeah. And she channeled the psychological fallout from that into a career path. She used her work as a form of therapy. And that path, it didn't just lead to success at home. It led to this immense academic level cultural fame, mostly outside her own country.
And she was constantly adapting her identity, her performance style, her goals, based on both this internal drive and what the market demanded.
It's a remarkable study in adaptation, both professional and personal.
It really is. And the central irony, for me, keeps coming back to that Hong Kong phenomenon. Her international breakthrough, the thing that led to academic papers being written about her, it was all sparked by an illegal, unauthorized video.
A source that was meant to be marginalized.
Exactly, which raises a fascinating question for you to think about. When regional popularity is sparked by the black market and not by official channels, how does that change its nature? Does that kind of intense grassroots enthusiasm maybe guarantee a more lasting historical legacy than sanctioned domestic fame?
A profound thought to carry forward.
Indeed. Until the next deep dive, we'll see you then.